With it being after 7 o'clock, we'll call the October 9th meeting to order, and we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I got the chair.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, first order of business will be the acceptance for the meeting, the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move the September 11th and September 25th minutes. I reviewed them and I approve them.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
I abstained on the second set, because I wasn't here at that meeting.
Okay,
Yeah, me as well.
on the second one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Small project, NACC, number 334, 7 Duncan Drive.
So this project involves fence installation to enclose the backyard and part of the side yards. The fence will be outside of the 25 and consist of wood posts and aluminum rails in between. At the rear side, there will be some stockade at the sides to hide barrels and the propane tank on the other side. Let's see, there are a couple of overhang branches of white pine that will be trimmed to accommodate the fence, but no other vegetation disturbances is anticipated. So they did start installing the posts. I asked them, they did call me to inquire about the wetlands. They had the posts installed. I asked them to stop. They stopped. Got out there, took a look at the wetland. Nothing really, no major changes. And the 25 is clearly marked out as the edge of lawn with some old plantings that you see around, but they're not really surviving because they were like ornamentals. So, but I suggested that they file for Category H and have a post-construction site visit once the fence is finished.
I don't have any questions.
No question.
We just talked about the things in the 25, for the...
Oh, that's right, and so in just going over the agenda items with the chair, he suggested that we have them install the wetland markers on the fence. Gonna just, because I think they're not there anymore from way back.
No questions. Thank you for picking that up.
Brian?
I move that we consider this to be a small project and under Category H, and I further move that we approve it as proposed with the conditions as listed.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. RDA,
So you're all
4 Oak
set?
Ave.
I'll get your permit to you probably tomorrow, if not next week. Okay, thanks for coming.
So we got RDA 4 Oak Ave.
All righty. So this project involves installation of an 18 kilowatt generator to be placed on top of a prefab 4x3 concrete pad within lawn and landscaped area. The location of the generator is such that the connection to the existing gas line is in close proximity so that they can avoid any disruptive trenching. And based on Justine's site measurements, the generator will be 34 feet from the bordering vegetated wetland. The house was built in the 1940s, and in some spots, less than 25 feet to the wetland itself. So generator isn't coming any closer than the existing structure. Waiver request is submitted because the generator is technically in the 50-foot no-build zone, but that really is the most logical place for it. The gas is right there, so. So I had recommended that you guys vote on whether to grant the waiver, close the hearing and issue a -3, schedule a pre-construction site visit with the contractor. I don't think erosion controls are necessary, and a post-construction just to verify compliance.
I'm all set.
No questions.
Just remind me that, Amy, just remind me, it has to be 10 feet from a window
Event,
or
oh,
opening.
yeah.
Joe?
No questions.
Brian?
To his point, if they do have to move it away from the building, is that gonna impact what we, I mean, it's still the right place to put it, so.
Yeah,
But I don't want them to have to come back before us if it ends up being 31 feet.
right.
Actually, there's,
I think
when we issue a negative determination, it doesn't get recorded or anything. It would actually have to be the honor system, we'd have to catch them on that.
Right,
So if you want to put in that decision exactly those words, if it moves from the proposed location, the Conservation Commission must be notified.
okay.
If anything, all you have to do is move it forward toward the street. And that'll get them away from the window. Based on this picture here.
So it's gonna go right here, where my
So there's no
cursor is.
windows?
Yeah, it's like
No,
a
there's no windows
corner
there.
and a notch, and the window's over here, so I think they have their clearance.
Well, the fire people are gonna shut them off and tell them where anyways.
Right. But we'll include language that if it has to shift, they have to let us know.
If anything, if he's gotta move it, he'll be moving it away anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions? Motion?
I'm looking at the generator, the waiver worksheet.
Oh, we gotta grant the waiver, that's right, forgot.
There's a sentence that starts under the alternative section that says if move the generator to any other location, brings the generator closer to the wetland and would require, and then it's blank.
Oh, additional trenching.
Okay, so,
Sorry about that. That may have gotten
so
cut
that's
out.
already in the alternatives
Yes,
analysis then?
Yes.
That,
disruptive trenching is in there.
Okay.
If the move, yeah, that's right, it's right there.
all right, with that information being clear, I would move to grant the waiver.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One abstention. One abstention.
So if there's no other information required, I would move that we close. I would move that we close and issue a -3 determination with the conditions as listed.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstention. Okay, NOI, 242-1894, Road 01, Turnpike Street.
Alrighty. Okay, I'll pull up the PowerPoint if you want. Alrighty. So the commission will recall that this project involves expansion of one of the parking lots at the front of the easterly side of the facility to contain a total of 79 parking spaces. 13 are there currently, 66 more will be constructed. They will construct a retaining wall on the southern edge of the parking lot with a wooden guardrail on top. Construct a maintained non-jurisdictional gravel wetland with a sediment forebay below the retaining wall to treat parking lot runoff. 2 catch basins will be installed within the parking lot to convey stormwater to the gravel wetland. Wetland resources include bordering vegetated wetland, land under water body, pond, inland bank, and 200-foot riverfront area. No new work is proposed within the 25 or the 50, and no work is proposed in land under water, bank, or BDW. 81 square feet of the riverfront is currently paved and will be repaved and restriped. 600 square feet of permanent impacts in the 100-foot buffer zone will consist of conversion of lawn to a new parking area. 4,300 square feet of temporary impact will occur in the 100-foot buffer zone, which includes repaving and restriping of portions of the existing parking lot, minor grading, and the installation of reinforced concrete pipe as part of the stormwater system. The stormwater management system has been peer-reviewed. The commission has the letters in their packets. The only outstanding concerns include the need for additional test pits to be done within the gravel wetland area. And the site, the peer reviewer brought up the fact that the site doesn't have an overall operation and maintenance plan for all the stormwater features on the site. I don't think the commission, the planning board required a blanket O&M, but it could be something that the commission thinks about. Let's see, and an illicit discharge statement to be submitted prior to land disturbance.
So 60,000 square feet of disturbance is going to require the DIPT's filing anyway, so we kick into an O&M requirement that we can impose right on top of that, no problem.
Okay. Let's see. So, all right.
When are the test pits proposed? Is it before the start of construction, or?
So, just introduce yourselves. I'm sorry, I kind of rambled on.
No, it's a good summary.
Okay.
I'm Colin Cotswitz, environmental scientist for VHB.
I'm Shane McNevich, I'm a civil engineer with VHB.
Yeah, I think test pits.
Yeah, so test pits have been conducted, and that paperwork's gonna be processed and sent to the planning board per their condition of approval.
Was the results, what, met the assumptions, or you're still working through it, or just?
Yeah, still working through it.
Because
There's,
that could have design implications.
right, there was bedrock encountered previously, and there's still bedrock.
So test pits have been done in the gravel wetland area, is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that, I thought it was, in the future.
Yeah,
Okay.
since June. I know we were last here in June, so. it's been a
Yeah.
while.
So based on the test pits, do you anticipate a design change?
Currently, no.
No, okay. Okay.
Okay.
Comfortable with the answer?
I mean, I haven't seen the test pits, so I can't, I'm not the designer, so yeah.
Jack?
Yeah, I'm just kind of going through the Horsley Witten report and the responses, and I don't know, it appears that there's some open issues still in the stormwater management review and responses are, I'd rather defer to the civil engineers on, within our resources to comment on that, to make sure that we're satisfied with the responses. But I guess I'll put that to the commission. Do these responses look good to you guys? And Amy?
So I think most of them have no further comment. I don't know, unless I missed some.
So we'd be looking at the July 30th
The July, yeah.
Horsley Witten letter.
Yeah.
So it looks
Is it
like
July
we-
30th?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's the last.
Looking on July 1st.
They're all in there. Keep going.
Is it further back?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I was reviewing an
just
earlier
kind
one,
of
I'm
did
sorry.
them in chronological order.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So VHB's response is in the middle at July 24th. And then Horsley Witten.
So I want to get back to the test pits. So that data hasn't been transmitted to us? We don't have the data on the test pits?
Not yet, no.
Okay, but we will, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Jeff, all set?
Yeah.
We have to continue anyway. We can't.
Clearly, there's
decision.
data that we don't have yet.
Right.
No questions at this time.
Joe?
Is this considered to be a redevelopment project under stormwater standards?
I believe.
Or is it because we're adding more impervious, it's therefore not considered redevelopment? Because I'm wondering
I don't
if
know.
it is redevelopment, a lot of these things are just good BMPs, but not necessarily required.
Previously not disturbed.
I don't think, it's because they're adding more parking.
You can see the outline up there.
Yeah, it's not, that area is not disturbed, so it's
All right.
a new development,
So new
or
development.
mix, I guess.
It's probably a mix.
So, but one question that just jumped up right in the beginning to me, and I admit my ignorance, I don't know what a gravel wetland is.
Yeah,
Yeah, but could you just enlighten me what that is?
yeah, essentially it's a wetland that's meant to treat stormwater runoff, and it's maintained,
So it's creating a gravel.
creating a.
All right, so
yes.
it's like
It's not existing, yeah. It'll
like
be
a wet bottom infiltrating system.
Exactly. It'll be
Okay.
maintained, so it won't be a jurisdictional wetland, but it'll still treat the stormwater coming off. the
So it's to
parking lot.
function as a gravel bottom, but it doesn't exist there now, it's something you're
Right.
proposing
They
to
have
build.
to
Correct.
build
Yeah, we used to call those wet detention basins, wet bottoms. It's to get the TSS out for pretreatment and then infiltrate.
Right.
And you get some nutrient uptake. Okay. The test pit conversation I was hearing is, you have done them or still need to do more?
They're complete, and I believe it's a condition of the planning board approval that we receive that we send the test pit information to them once obtained. So the test
So
pits
the
are complete.
analysis was based on the presumed soil condition. The test pits were looking to confirm that.
No, so there were test pits originally completed in March. Since that time, the designed stormwater feature was shifted, the location. So the condition from the planning board was that there were additional test pits conducted in the location of the new,
Which is reasonable, so.
yes,
The first ones you did were preliminary, gave you some level of confidence that you use those values for sizing and calculating how this functions.
correct.
They're looking, the planning board's condition was to do more test pits, submit those results to them, to us, to Horsley and Witten, to verify that your initial assumption was valid, therefore the stormwater works. Is that what the train of thought here?
Yeah, I believe the condition was worded that it needs to be submitted to the planning board for their review. But for all the reasons you listed, but
Okay.
it wasn't called out explicitly, but yeah.
So what I'm hearing is you're close. And once we get that data, assuming everything is in agreement with your initial presumptions, then this is fine, but we still don't have those results yet.
Correct,
All right, so I'm
they're in
all set
process
at
right
this
now.
point. I'm all set, thanks.
Yep.
All right.
So I'm hung up on the same test pit thing. So we found out that you got the 4-foot estimated seasonal high within your gravel wetland area. Since you said you're infiltrating, and I imagine it's handling the under year.
So the gravel wetland is for treatment.
Yep.
We determined that infiltration wasn't feasible, given the shallow bedrock
so you're
conditions
lining
found
it?
on site.
You're lining it?
Correct.
Okay. Cool. Nothing else?
Just one more point. If ledge is encountered during these, during the test pits, could you specify how that's going to be removed? Methods on how the ledge is to be removed?
Sure, I mean, that would ultimately be determined by the contractor. But I assume it would be some mix of rock excavation and maybe blasting.
Depends on the conditions.
Correct.
Yeah, right. So, probably a good idea to know that, too, in your response for next time.
Is there any more?
On those O&M, on the O&M question, have you prepared, or are you prepared to make available an O&M plan for maintenance moving forward on the site?
The client is willing to prepare an overall O&M plan if it's
Okay, so
required.
we're gonna need to see that submitted to us as well, as part of our filing.
And that prior to any approval from you? You need to see
Yes.
no O&M?
Typically.
Yes, prior to.
For the entire site, I just want to clarify.
Yes,
Okay.
Right.
yeah, because it doesn't have one right now. And there's a lot going on that site, so.
Some more questions?
No, I was gonna ask about breakout, but it looks like they have a detail showing some additional, flowable fill in the berm for the basin, so. I'm all set.
Any more questions?
Check for abutters. Are there any abutters to this project that want to be heard? No abutters answered.
Move to continue.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
All right,
Thank
so
you.
it's continued to October 23rd. And we'll be in need of the test pit information and whatever conclusions come out of that, if things change. An overall O&M for the site. Is that it? Is that it, you guys? Okay, just want to make sure we're all on the same page on what we're
Yeah.
expecting next time.
No, absolutely.
All right, great.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks.
All right.
Next one is 242 1900 Great Pond Road, boat ramp.
Okay. Just a short recap, just to refresh your memories. The proposed project will reconstruct the existing deteriorating boat launch, replace the failed concrete stone retaining wall along the shoreline, and reorganize the parking, driveway, and boat rack areas. Project features include the new boat launch, a new mechanically stabilized earth concrete block retaining wall, proposed permeable paver parking areas and driveways, as well as the bioretention areas to manage stormwater runoff. Other site improvements include a new double swing gate at the entrance, locking bollards at the boat ramp to restrict unwanted access and ensure security. Work will take place within 202 linear feet of inland bank to Lake Kachikowick, 4338 square feet of land underwater with 4838 square feet of replacement. Same in the 100-year floodplain, is that correct, Jamie?
It's 1,540 in the FEMA flood zone. It was updated.
1,540 square feet, okay. And then the replacement for that, is it 1-to-1?
Correct.
Okay. Natural Heritage identifies the eastern pond mussel as a species of special concern. They do have a letter with conditions, we have that on file. Work is in the 25 and the 50, and in the lake itself. Alternatives analysis and waiver request has been submitted. At the first hearing, the commission requested additional information with regard to replacement of trees, looking for 1-to-1 replacement, and being a size of not less than 1 caliper DBH. The consultant provided a response indicating that the design plans specify a 1-to-1 replacement of all trees removed that are 6 inches in diameter or larger. The size of the replacement trees will be 2+ gallons at 4 to 5 foot height or larger. The commission was concerned about the ice forming in the lake and around the ramp and how the ramp and the supporting structures would hold up to ice pressures. The applicant's engineer provided a data sheet and noted that the pavers will be placed on a setting bed without mortar, which allows flexibility for freeze and thaw cycles. The project has gone through 3 rounds of stormwater peer review, and I have provided the letters and responses. Remaining loose ends include additional test pits within the bioretention areas to confirm exfiltration rates and groundwater levels, and submittal of these evaluation logs at the pre-construction. And construction entrance should be 30 feet long just to clarify discrepancies between the plan sheets. And just status of federal and state permits that are required for this project. The Chapter 91 and the 401 water quality have been submitted last week. The MEPA will require an EIR, and that will be submitted in the next couple of weeks, and then Army Corps of Engineers permit will be submitted in the next couple of weeks. So Jamie Villette is here with Environmental Partners on behalf of the town, if you have additional questions for her, but that's it in a nutshell.
Thanks, Amy.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I think Amy mostly covered since I was in front of you last, but please feel free to ask questions.
So similar question, when are the test pits being conducted?
Prior to construction, the test pits will be confirmed, or will be performed and confirmed.
Okay, because the bottom of the bioretention's at 115.5, and then there's 30 inches of soil and stone to meet TSS removal, and that brings you into the top of bank. So I just don't know, is there like, if there's any existing information that, you use to kind of have an estimate for groundwater separation?
We did perform borings on site, 3 of them. They're just not in the direct or actual location of the proposed bioretention areas. So we determined groundwater based on the 3 borings that were performed. They're closer to the lake's edge than on the roadway side of the site. They're about, I think the closest boring was about plus or minus 50 feet.
From the bioretention?
From the proposed bioretention areas, yes.
Okay. And there was no groundwater encountered, or?
There was groundwater encountered, so that's what we based our design off of, to provide separation from the bottom of the bioretention areas. But it was a comment from Horsley Witten in their stormwater peer review, and so we will be performing test pits within the locations of the proposed bioretention areas to confirm groundwater elevations prior to construction.
Okay, and if that, I guess if you hit groundwater, is there like an alternate?
We'll make adjustments, but the bioretention areas, so since we're not required by the stormwater standards to install the bioretention areas, it's additional BMP, because we're removing impervious area not adding, I think we're removing impervious area by about 91% on the site. So this is in order to treat the storm, the majority is in order to treat the stormwater runoff that's being conveyed from the roadway into the bioretention areas instead of sheet flowing across the site.
So.
So
Okay.
if groundwater was encountered, we would make the appropriate adjustments to either ensure separation, which is, again, a guideline from the stormwater handbook, or we could possibly reduce the 30 inches to 24 inches of the soil media and below the bioretention areas.
Yeah,
So there are
so
design changes
the-
we could make if groundwater was encountered to not remove the bioretention areas from the design.
No, I understood, but you're removing impervious area, but it's still vehicular parking, correct? So it still needs to meet the TSS removal.
Correct, so, we would be, well, I guess, yeah, so we would still need the bioretention areas to meet the 80% TSS removal, was standard 5 or 6.
Yeah. And you probably need the 30 inches to meet the phosphorus requirements for the
It's
water
24
quality.
inches for phosphorus and 30 inches for nitrogen.
Nitrogen, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that's all.
Yeah, it seems like we're close, but not quite there. You know, from the commission standpoint, it's important that we are confident that these bioretention areas are going to work as designed, and I think the test pits are a pretty key piece of information that can tell us, you know, with reasonable certainty whether they're going to function as designed or not. And so I think, you know, our normal course of action is to wait for test pit results and see what they say and make the evaluation based on that new information. I would suggest we do the same thing on this project. It seemed like that was the only really outstanding issue in the stormwater management report review from Horsley Witten. So I would be of a mind to, you know, say it's worth the wait to see what those test pits do and make the normal evaluation that we normally do. So that's all I have.
I have no questions, I agree with Jack.
Yeah, I do also. Now, how'd you make out with the trees, now that one-to-one you're gonna do?
Yeah, we're proposing a one-to-one replacement for the trees. And the majority of tree removal, well, the one-to-one replacement would be for trees larger than 6 inches in diameter.
Okay, so you have done no test pits here at all?
We've done 3 soil borings on site. They're just not in the direct vicinity of the proposed bioretention areas. So we did encounter groundwater in 2 of the 3 borings.
How deep did you encounter it? When did you encounter it? How, do you know how deep you were?
I believe it was 5 to 6 feet below grade.
Okay, and the wall is, how far down you gotta go for the wall?
For the retaining wall?
Yeah.
The retaining wall below the lake elevation, I believe, is 1 to 2 feet below the lake bed elevation.
Lake bed, okay.
Okay, I'm just curious, so how far, when you encounter the groundwater, how far below do you have to dig?
For the retaining wall, or?
Yeah, any excavation work. I'm just interested, because I'm wondering if the dewatering pits are gonna be enough.
So we're proposing turbidity curtain and cofferdam for the work in the lake, which will pump out the water within the project limits in the lake. So that's would be the first phase of the construction. And then demolishing and replacing the retaining wall along the lake's edge. And dewatering would need to occur for, I believe, 2 feet below excavation to make sure the work is being performed in dry conditions to be able to install the proper leveling pad for the wall.
Okay.
If you go to sheet, I want to say CD6, we do show a detail CD.
Oh, CD,
Six.
CD6?
I think it's 5.
CD5, yep. We do show a cross-sectional detail of the block wall. If you, it's okay.
Oh, is it
Scroll.
this up here?
Yeah. So we don't call out the 12-inch thick is the leveling pad. And then it should be, I think it's either 1 to 2 feet below lake bed existing grade elevation, or the finished grade elevation. It would be keyed in.
Nothing at this point, Lee. You guys have another cover. So, while we still have that sheet up, if you go a little further to the lower right, we're gonna see a profile of the boat launch itself. Bingo, perfect right there. So my question was going to be this discussion on groundwater. First of all, the soil condition, I think from what I recall, it's probably, made land. It's not natural. It's because it used to be the old pump house for the water supply, I believe. So we're not dealing with natural soils. We're dealing with, soils that were made over time. But my concern would have been, and I think this is depicted, I hope you can shed light on it, is that the water, what we would expect for seasonal water table in a natural setting in natural soils is different than this, when you look at it in this context, because what we're dealing with is a manipulated lake elevation driven by the water supply. They lower and raise the lake over time, up and down,
Yep.
as demand is warranted and as natural conditions fill it. So we're not looking at a naturally occurring, but you're giving us some historical data there.
Yep.
So my question is, the water table that we're talking about, the separation for bioretention, is pretty much driven by that bandwidth that we see existing. And are you saying we're confident that the bottom of this bioretention area is not influenced by that fluctuating water table at such a high elevation? Because it looks like it might be. If I'm seeing elevations on average, max observed elevation between 2014 and 20 at 113.9, and a bottom of the detention, bioretention at, actually, these elevations don't even, having a difficult time picking off a spot elevation within the bioretention area.
I believe
it
it's
115?
like 115 should be the lowest elevation in the bioretention area.
So if your maximum observed is at 113.9, that's 114, it's only a foot lower than the bottom of your retention pond.
That's
So-
not, and that's not the bottom.
And that's not
There's
the
all
bottom.
soils too.
That's right, that's the bottom of the finished bioretention area. And if you look at the next note, is the maximum average water elevation differs just only by, 4/10 of a foot. So you're not gaining a heck of a lot of separation there. So I think this cross-section drives the question that we were all just talking about, is where is that water table? I think it's gonna be a lot higher than you think you're gonna find. And if you dig it right now, with the lake probably lower than these average lows, you're gonna get an artificial result. What we do know is that the lake fluctuates within that bandwidth by design.
Yep.
And I think your bioretention is gonna be too close to that water. That's what it looks like.
So will you jurisdict when we perform the test pits? If,
I'm saying, I don't think you necessarily need to do test pits. If you've got historical data that tells you where the water level is, driven by a known historical data from our own water department, I think we know where that water
that's
is.
the
And it doesn't drop off precipitously, no pun intended, it doesn't drop off rapidly by getting a little bit further away from the lake shore, or away from the lake surface. I think you're gonna see that in an ambient condition, that you're gonna see that groundwater on average around at 113.9.
I would defer to getting the information from test pits
So I raised the
versus
question, because I
getting
think
the water
that's where we're
elevation.
driving at, is this bioretention function in separation of groundwater is something that really does need to be done before we issue a permit, not before they start construction.
I mean, when we performed the borings, it was along the lake's edge, and the groundwater was different than the water elevation that you see in the reservoir, because the reservoir is it's a storage area. It's a lake versus your groundwater elevations may differ from the elevations in the lake.
All right. Don't know that. For a fact, I don't. What I suspect is that, given the huge size of the lake, in a water level that doesn't fluctuate by a whole bunch, my suspicion is that the lands adjacent to the the lake surface, especially this little bump up peninsula of made soils, I think that water seeks a very similar
I think the
piezometric surface as the lake.
groundwater elevations were around like 112.5.
That's a boring, not an estimated seasonal high groundwater from a test pit.
And I don't know who did the borings, or what they were asked to look for, or what they saw. I mean, if you advance a boring, and you advance it to the point that you want it to, and then
You're
take
just
a
looking for
measurement and go
wet
out.
soil.
But you come back in a half hour, that water comes back up. So I'm not confident of waiting until pre-construction to get that number. I think it's something we need to know in order to finalize the discussion on bioretention. So my other question that I had, and I had it from the last couple of meetings, was the material and the ramp itself. Now, one of the things that we need to do as commissioners regarding protection of the wetland is that we should always, it's a cliche at this point, but avoid, minimize, mitigate. And part of the avoidance and minimize would be not only the singular initial activity, but any repetitive activities thereafter. And I'm looking at a stone-filled permeable paver within the freeze zone of the lake surface. It will deteriorate. So I think, my question is the selection of that material for the ramp itself will deteriorate with some frequency, and will need to be replaced with some frequency.
I mean, any material will deteriorate over time, but it is recommended application use for the turf stone permeable paver, for boat ramps,
And
bank
someone said
stable.
this was the same exact design you used at the Merrimack? Or was it
I
elsewhere?
can't quote if it's the same exact
Someone-
design, but if it's a similar material used in the Merrimack, I know my colleague did make a note of that last time we met.
Because if it is, and I think I remembered someone saying that in a prior meeting, unless I'm confusing two boat ramps in town, and I don't think I am. It was this one. So the one of the Merrimack, that is actually tidally influenced, and it doesn't freeze solid. So that's the difference where this lake does freeze. So I think the selection of material, there needs to be some discussion with the O&M of what it is they intend to do. What's the expected life of that actual ramp without having to go and be replaced again?
I don't have any scientific data other than the manufacturer's recommendations through our research, and discussions with manufacturers
so
that
let me-
they've used this before
let me ask if-
for
if-
boat ramp or bank stabilization
And
along a
my
lake
hang-up,
or a
my hang-up
pond.
is on the permeable paver. You know, was there any discussion or any thought given to just doing a cast in place if you're dewatering and got a coffin in there and put a more permanent structure in place that can withstand that sort of freeze-thaw
I mean,
cycle?
precast boat ramp is still going to have cracking or spalling with the freeze-thaw cycles, so the idea with the permeable pavers, for example, if there were to be cracking, instead of replacing your entire precast section, it actually would be easier to replace your pavers if they were to crack long-term. But it's, I mean, our intent isn't to install material that's going to deteriorate like the asphalt ramp that's there today. And we did put thought behind, you know, our material selection and reaching out to manufacturers. And there is application use of this permeable paver specifically used along shorelines for bank stabilization in lakes and ponds, and have held up over time. I don't have the exact lifespan, but could again reach out to the manufacturers that we've been in discussion with.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the, you know, the detail in CD5, typical boat launch cross-section and the stone-filled concrete paver detail section. And those two, to me, look to be something that's not very durable. And again, I can't tell you whether it's 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years that's going to last. And my concern is I think it's going to be, you know, individual grids, 24 by 24, is going to have differential, and the functionality of a boat ramp is going to cause them more frequently than we're hoping to have to go back in there and do work on a regular basis. And it's one of the things we should try to.
What information are you looking for specifically that we can provide you?
Looking for something that's more rigid, that's not gonna let, you know, let that frozen pond water within this area, you know, as it is slope, it's gonna fluctuate through the whole thing. Maybe the deeper depths is not a big issue, but up in that freeze zone, I think that water's gonna get in there, and you're gonna have frost heaving within that freeze zone of the lake surface. It's gonna cause all those blocks. I dare suspect within 1 year, those blocks are gonna dislodge and be damaged. But, it's enough with that. I mean, I would look for a more monolithic, single-pour, rigid, reinforced concrete type of structure in there that would provide the exact.
In lieu of changing the material, would we be able to provide you information from the manufacturer from installed applications of permeable pavers that are within water bodies in cold climates? Would that be satisfactory?
Yeah,
in
if you could
seeing-
give us a case, I'm not sure if I have support of my colleagues, but you submit to the commission a reference or a case study or an example where this detail has been used in New England within a lake setting, not a flowing river or a sea or salt water or brackish water, but in a lake setting, and that has been in place for at least 5 years. And I'd like to be able to find out from the owner of that ramp, you know, what their performance has been with that. That would be useful.
Okay.
And if that's positive results, then I will move on.
I will do my best to get that information from
And I'm all set.
from the manufacturers.
Ryan? I'm on team test pit, let's figure out what the redox is, and we'll go from there. We don't need to talk about it anymore, though.
So we need to continue. How long?
Check for butters.
Oh, are any butters here for this ramp project?
Not answer.
Do you need, next meeting you'll have that information for us, or you want?
October 23rd?
Probably continue to the following meeting.
Okay, so that's the November 13th meeting?
One is, can we continue to October 23rd? And
Yeah.
if that doesn't work, I'll follow up with you, Amy?
Sure, yep.
So you're trying to start construction?
So we're gonna continue to the
Spring.
23rd?
What's,
Spring of 2025. But we're still awaiting other permits. Like Amy had mentioned, we did submit the combined Chapter 91 and 401 water quality application recently, so.
Is this ARPA money? Do you know?
This is community preservation
CPC, okay.
funds, yep.
Not super time sensitive.
Okay, so we need to continue.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Enforcement order, 105 Hillside Road.
just a quick update. The enforcement order required the homeowner to engage a land surveyor to provide survey services and provide a plot plan. I included an email from Jack Sullivan, professional engineer that will be doing the survey, that he is engaged, so progress is being made. It's just an update, no action at this time. So I'll just continue it to the 23rd.
You're chairing now, right, Al? So I move to continue the 23rd.
Second. Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Just continue to the 23rd. Amy, for the record, I'll be chairing this next.
Okay, yep. All right.
242-1787, 135 North Ramp Road, Lawrence Municipal Airport, continued from 9/25/24.
All righty. Oh, go ahead, you can introduce yourselves.
Chairman and members of the commission, I'm here with our Assistant City Attorney, Mr. Foley, and any questions?
Members of the commission, for all of you that I know, great to see you again. The two of you who I do not know, I'm Kevin Foley. I'm the first Assistant City Attorney for the City of Lawrence, and really here tonight to get a little bit of direction from the commission. I must admit that my involvement in this is very recent, within the last couple of weeks. But from what I do understand, there was an order of conditions that was put in place by this commission for a former tenant of ours, and that order of conditions is still existing. And then we had a horrific event here in North Andover, all over the Northeast in August of '23, and the order of conditions that was addressing some drainage issues around this, I'll call it a glass pile, deteriorated rapidly, which led this commission to do an enforcement order. In the meantime, I believe the Airport Commission appealed to the DEP on the issue of that the order of conditions was on the entire 434 acres rather than just this area. That appeal has been withdrawn at the request of the DEP, well, at the suggestion of the DEP that we work that issue out here locally with the commission. Besides myself, Kevin Foley, who's here tonight, I'm happy to say that we have our current tenant, at least three of the principals, two Jimmys and a Chris from Dynamic, who are here, and along with their engineer from Hancock, Brian, and their attorney, Peter, from, what's the name of the firm? Verrill, yeah, and so they're all here. I don't have a plan for you tonight, and I apologize that I have not read the order of conditions that was put in place from the former tenant. So really what I'm kind of looking for, and we're taking this very seriously, that's why we have our tenants here, we have our manager here, is to see, I understand that some of the commissioners have gone up and visited the site. I was up there today. I've never been up there before to see what it looked like, just to see if we can open a discussion on what we do from here. I think that our engineer, or the engineer that did the plan for the former tenant was Hancock Engineering, and that's who Brian is with. And he's here to talk about that plan and what modifications, if any, are needed from that plan, which would probably mean a modification from the existing order of conditions. So really sort of, in broad strokes, trying to get some sense from the commission on what our marching orders would be so that we can address this. I'm thankful that at least since August of '23, we haven't had any events like that event. And so from what I understand, with the riprap that has been put up in place up there, we haven't had any further infiltration or anything going any closer to the resource area. So,
Counselor, what I'm going to do is, I understand you're coming in, you're looking for information. Rather than discuss this for 2 hours
yes,
on documents that are already well-formed and filed and settled, I'm going to ask Amy, if you can, give some kind of a timeline or a series of events, like, in other words, there is an order of conditions that's issued. That order of conditions is issued to the airport, not the tenants.
that's correct.
Okay. The order of conditions is separate from
The enforcement order.
the enforcement order, which deals with the failure of the slopes and the conveyance of plastic and glass into the wetland.
Right.
I'm not sure, I mean, I don't know, I'm not sure of the temperature of this commission. Are we going to hold a hearing on our own order of conditions? We have an order of conditions that's been issued, not appealed. The court action that you referenced, we solved already.
Oh, no, I didn't bring up the court action at all.
You brought up an appeal to DEP.
No, that was involving this order of conditions.
But we already solved that.
No, we didn't. They withdrew from DEP with the anticipation that we could handle their issue of it governing the entire airport.
I recall
as a
specifically this
modification.
commission
No.
agreeing that it didn't encumber the entire.
Yeah, but the order has to actually reflect that, so when they record it at the registry,
So-
it's very specific to the least part of.
Is my memory that bad? I thought we had that.
We said we'd be willing to modify the order to do what they need
So that would
for
take
this
care of that.
leased property.
Yes.
That's not an issue.
Right. I think the litigation you're talking about, Hancock's actually involved with that litigation with 27 Charles Street, I think is what you're talking about.
I'm not interested.
No,
We're
okay.
not
Yeah,
talking
that's
about,
not-
we're not talking
And
about
that's
27
I'm not
Charles
here
Street.
to talk about that at all, because
Yeah.
there's an existing order of conditions on that that's going to be fulfilled.
So where do you hope to go with this right now?
Just a little bit of direction, because the plan to address the drainage issues up there at the glass pile was done for the prior tenant. The firm, the Hancock who did that plan, is here tonight with the current tenant. The airport doesn't have money to do this. We're hoping that we may be able to do something with the current tenant to see where the commission wants us to go, whether that plan would be acceptable. I think we have to take that glass that's migrated down towards the resource area out. There's no doubt about that. But then is the existing drainage plan, and I'm sorry, Brian, if I'm stomping on what you want to say, I should probably have Brian sitting here, because I'm not an engineer, I'm just an attorney. We take care of that part of it, and does the commission feel comfortable with what the existing, the plan that they already ordered will take care of the problem up there?
Are you talking about the enforcement order or the order of conditions?
The order of conditions.
Well, the order of conditions,
Based on what happened with the flood.
Yeah, but
like,
that
it
order-
behaved a certain way.
yeah.
And now it made the commission scratch their heads and say, is the design appropriate, knowing what we've seen out there, that we get a good gully washer and side slopes fall over the place. So our enforcement order did say, re-examine your design based on this event, because we have a failure of the glass slope.
So,
So-
We have
I
the
guess,
tail wagging the dog.
So I guess where I'm
Can I kind of try to bring this back into
Well,
a
let-
tame beast?
yeah, just give me 1 second here. I'm just struggling with the fact that, are we being asked to redesign our own order of conditions?
I'm not hearing that, and,
No.
we're not, and I'm not willing to.
Okay.
What I know about the site is, we had an unpermitted expansion of a landfill area with speculative accumulation of glass in an area that should have been, was jurisdictional with no permit, and we said, stop, cease and desist. And that resulted in a certain level of activity, and that they were to not use that peninsula anymore. And once we got to that point, the long protracted analysis and study and permitting process moved forward, took a long time to get information that we got, most of which was regarding concerns with water quality moving its way through the horizons and out, and resulted in a competent, approved plan for how they were going to not use the site, how they were going to cap off and seal the site, stabilize the slope, capture water from various areas, move it through the glass on interior areas and not the edge, all of which would have prevented that glass from sliding. They didn't do any of it. And as a result, they got a second enforcement order because of the storm. So that, it's because of inaction. The order of conditions, which is probably getting close to expiring,
I could not locate it on DEP's website.
not surprised, depending on which website you're looking at, because this was also a feud between DEP solid waste and DEP wetlands. And, you know, you had the solid waste actually promoting the filling of this area in wetlands, saying we can't do it, can't let it happen.
Yeah, so I don't know if they have record of it.
So, with all that being said, is we have an order of conditions in place for a site that, if they had followed it, would have not allowed the glass to have moved, because they didn't do that and continue to use that finger, which from what I can tell from Google Earth, from recent photographs, they got trucks and things stored out there, and they're not supposed to be doing any of that. So it's still being used that way, in violation to the original order of conditions, original enforcement order and the current order of conditions. So they're in violation of that. The situation here is, we all kind of sat back at a distance. It's off the beaten track. Nobody drives past it every day. It's that we have another project where they had a outstanding issue with permitting, and they were filing another one with us, and we said, whoa, just because it's the airport, how can we consider other filings because we have these other actions that are in violation? We're not supposed to move forward on applications. That's how this came to be. So they're back here to talk about that, to ask us to revisit, and I haven't heard it yet, but to reconsider what we think of the order of conditions. I say it's valid. Build it.
That's what I just heard.
Build it.
That's what I just heard, council.
And the time is running
Council
out,
wants to
and
talk,
by
I
not
believe.
building it, you're not only in violation with the recent enforcement order, you're in violation to the order of conditions and the original enforcement order.
Now, let me ask you this.
That's what I remember.
Okay, I think your memory's pretty good. Yeah, I think it would be more appropriate if they want to amend the order of conditions, file an amendment and hold a hearing and amend the order, or motion to amend the order of conditions. In other words, it's almost like we're being asked, we're saying, okay, you gave us an order of conditions, but we don't think it's appropriate anymore. We want to change it. Well, if you want to change it, you got to amend it.
I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if it is appropriate anymore.
Yeah.
I rely on the experts about, whether it's gonna work.
But you understand how an order of conditions works.
No, I do. And so what I hear Mr. Lynch saying, Commissioner Lynch say, is that it may be about to expire. Do we need to take any action on that to extend it?
My recollection, time blurs. It's probably a couple of years.
It was issued February of 2023.
Oh, okay. Oh, so we've got 3 years from there, right? to-
Yes.
to do it.
3 years from
So
that,
you
yeah.
got
Okay.
And-
Another year and a half.
yeah.
But I mean,
14 months.
unless I'm misinterpreting the data here, it sounds to me like the applicant desires to amend the order.
Is that what we're saying, Brian?
Amend or modify. Now, that's what I'm hearing. If I'm hearing it wrong, I would appreciate knowing that.
Are we seeking a modification?
You'd seek a modification because of what, the area that it governs, that's one thing, right?
Yes.
And see, from my perspective, with how this glass pile behaved in the rain event, is this design still appropriate?
We think.
I guess
we-
that's
we
my
think-
question.
We think alike. That's sort of the way
I
I was
don't know.
looking at it.
I'm happy to speak.
Yeah,
Step up.
you can take the podium if you want.
Please, yeah, thank you.
Good evening. So for the record, Brian Goodrow with Hancock Associates. I'm a professional engineer here in the Commonwealth. And while I did not do the original plan that's referenced in the order, that was Jacob Lemieux with my company, I have familiarized myself with it. Generally speaking, what I think Commissioner Lynch was saying is that the plan wasn't constructed, which created an erosion control issue, essentially, and the erosion that we see out there. Generally speaking, I would concur with that. So I don't think that the plan itself and the stormwater management needs wholesale changes. The reason why I was asked to be here tonight was to kind of describe in broad strokes how we can take care of the enforcement action and restore the area of washout, stabilize the slope, provide access, construction access down to the bottom to be able to do that. And then, what is that actual restoration look like? So we sidewalked it last week. Obviously, between then and now, I don't have a plan prepared. I don't have the narratives to support and, allow the commission to be able to make an educated decision on this. But what I can do is I walked the site with our senior ecologist, Dave Cowell. He's the wetland scientist that delineated out here and was a part of, the year-long process to come to the final order of conditions. And I discussed with him, we walked down at the bottom of the slope, kind of looked at the PGA, the processed glass aggregate that washed out, and we talked about, where it is, its location, what does restoration look like? And at the end of the day, that's what we want to do. We want to restore the buffer zone and then have the airport or Dynamic, the leaseholder, whoever, execute the plan, because essentially the plan will make sure this doesn't happen again. Now, when me and Dave walked the site, there was glass that kind of washed out everywhere, and it went to not within the buffer, or not within the wetlands area itself, but within the buffer zone and certainly within the 25-foot. And what I've kind of thought through is the process of what we have to do to be able to develop that plan and narrative. And the first step that we're going to take is to conduct survey again, to locate the area of erosion, the extent of the glass washout, so that we can appropriately determine where our erosion controls are going to go prior to creating more disturbance and actually restoring the area. And what that would look like, after a survey is done, is we would establish two limits of erosion control, one at the lower limit of the actual washout that's close to the wetlands, and a secondary erosion control line at the toe of the slope. I mean, you saw a ribbon of silt fence that was there. Obviously, there's nothing that's out there that's being effective right now outside of the riprap that's holding the glass kind of in place. So that would be step one. Step two would be constructing a ramp to get small equipment down the slope into that area to be able to kind of remove portions of the glass and then be able to bring in topsoil, suitable planting material to go over the top of that. Now, one of the questions that Jimmy had raised on site was whether or not some of that glass could remain. And when I was talking it over with, our wetland scientist, are we going to be creating more disturbance within the buffer zone by removing every small piece of processed glass aggregate and then bringing in the topsoil and having to reconstruct some of the vegetation that's there? What's down there right now, we have a handful of somewhat mature trees. We have some shrubs, but it's somewhat sparse. So our thought is to take out the larger kind of areas of washout, and there's 3 of them. They kind of broadcast out in a bit of a fan. So on the left, the center, and the right, you have larger depths of glass, and that could be scraped back easily. But some of these smaller areas that have glass in them, 1 inch, 2 inches deep, that would simply be covered with loam, and then we would broadcast specific seed mix to be able to restore the buffer area. The advantage to that, again, is being able to not further harm some of the more mature vegetation that's down there. If we have to remove all of the glass, likely we're just clearing the entire area within that lower limit of work line, and then we're going to be trying to replant, what's out there. So I think tonight what we're looking for is a little bit of direction on that piece of it. Can we remove the large amounts, large piles of glass that washed out, excuse me, and kind of leave in place the smaller ones that may be more detrimental to remove, and then have to remove vegetation with it. Now, the second kind of aspect of the restoration plan is physically getting equipment down there. I would envision, Bobcats and Minis being able to do this small amount of work at the bottom of the pile, but they can't access it right now. So in the area of the erosion itself, we would have to create a ramp to get down there. So we would carve out a smaller section, further back up the peninsula at a slope suitable to get equipment down there to be able to transport the loam. And then at the end of the as we progress through, partial glass removal, bringing in loam and then seeding that area and working our way back up. The other question that we have is what does the peninsula itself need to be restored to, if you will? Now, it would be our thought that we would leave the ramp in place and then be able to, again, bring loam and seed and vegetation to stabilize it, because we're not really trying to recreate the glass pile out there with a very steep slope. We're trying to make sure that we're establishing vegetation, and we're making sure that the pile itself does not have any further erosion issues. So with respect to modifying the order, it would be up to the commission if something like that needs to be included, but it wouldn't fundamentally change our approach of we need to establish stormwater controls within the peninsula to be able to control, attenuate, and kind of allow that water to not do what it did, which is flow down the side slopes in an uncontrolled manner, create erosion, and then carry the glass with it. So really, those are the 2 items that I would like to get some kind of direction on before we develop that full plan. Now, again, full plan is going to be a little bit of time, so we have to do our surveying. When we resurvey for the areas that have been altered, we'll reset by survey instrument the wetland flags. So if the commission wants to see, if Amy wants to see the erosion control after it's been established, you're going to be able to see exactly where the wetlands are. You'll be able to see where the erosion control, the survey will allow us to set that erosion control based on the updated information that we have. And then it'll also allow us to kind of grade out that access ramp. The second piece, again, of what the documents are that we're going to produce and submit to the commission will be the plan, the grading plan, which would contain the construction kind of the construction sequencing, and then following construction of the ramp, the restoration, if you will. So getting us down into the area that needs to be restored, and then the actual restoration, working ourselves back up to the top of the peninsula. That's kind of in broad strokes what our thoughts are at this point in time. And again, the specific direction that we're looking for is on those 2 items, entire removal of glass, or kind of the majority of glass that's easily accessible, allowing us to still replant and have the buffer naturalized, and then the actual construction of the access ramp down to it, if the commission would be amenable to leaving it as a ramp, with the understanding that this peninsula is no longer being used by mandate in the order of conditions.
So I guess my question is, we have two different vehicles here that are operating in the same direction. We have an order of conditions, and we have an enforcement order.
We do.
I'm going to ask the commission for recommendations on how we proceed. I'll start with you, and what we have an order of conditions, and we have an enforcement order. They seem to both seek out the same ending, but the enforcement order kind of,
They do, and it seems like, I guess what I'm not clear about is, you know, I appreciate the description and looking for guidance and trying to clean this up. But talking about the ramp and restoring that area, is the intention to complete the work in the order of conditions as well, or just restore the?
No. So the restoration of the erosion that happened and the
Yep.
PGA washout was kind of what's been alluded to, kind of a direct result of not having the stormwater controls in place. So it wouldn't make sense to restore and not do stormwater. It has to all be done. I would suggest that we do the restoration work, and once they're up back onto the peninsula, they then construct the stormwater controls.
So kind of bring it back, close out the enforcement order, and then have the order. I don't know, thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, we had an order of conditions that had a design to stabilize that slope, but that was, you know, a very key feature of it. The design looks like it didn't work, obviously. We've got so much glass that had washed out at the bottom of the slope.
They didn't do anything. They didn't construct
They
it.
haven't-
Not that it didn't work,
But it was a vegetated slope at the time. Not much.
weeds growing.
it was just, yeah,
So there's two issues here. There's cleanup and there's the design for stabilization. Cleanup, let's talk about that first. Anything in the wetlands has got to come out. That is, I think, a non-starter for everyone.
Point of clarification, if I may, we didn't see any washout within wetlands proper. We're talking about buffer zone only.
Okay, my memory tells me that
I mean, it
that
wasn't much. It really petered out right at the edge of the wetland. Maybe if you know, it was
But
like,
understood.
this is what it was like. Okay, good, it's not in the wetland. But there's a nice,
There was
profile.
like a point of wetland that came up,
Yes.
and it did get contaminated in my memory. Whatever contamination is within the wetland line needs to come out.
Understood.
Okay.
Don't lose
Absolutely.
sight of the fact that what happened here was a protracted and ongoing and long-term unpermitted filling of the land in violations of the Wetland Protection Act and our bylaw. And by doing so, never mind in the wetland, buffer zones violated everywhere. And through that long protracted process, we already gave up buffer zone. So if it's not in the wetland, but it's further into the buffer zone, it's contrary to where we were. And I clearly by my tone, I have very little patience in hearing this. Leave it in the wetland, absolutely not. I say get it out of the buffer zone, get it to where it was not any closer according to the original plan. That's what I expect as we go around.
Yeah, as we go around. I mean, I
Don't
look
lose
at,
sight of where we were. Well, I know. It's not your
I
turn yet.
know.
Sit down, buddy. But he was giving, I thought Jack might have been giving something up.
no, absolutely not. You know, as the engineer, Mr. Goudreau had proposed, he was proposing that, well, maybe it would be better to leave some glass and not remove as much vegetation, okay? So that kind of is an argument that, does favor conservation from time to time, but when I look at that picture, it looks like the glass is at least 2 feet thick on there. That's not conducive to an effective buffer zone.
Correct.
And what we're dealing with is, we want to create an effective buffer zone. So the question, logical question I would ask is, how much glass can you have in there and have an effective buffer zone? And I'm not sure how that question gets answered, if at all. So there's there's obviously a large task of glass removal at the toe of that slope. Where we make the cutoff is up for argument, but certainly every bit of glass comes out of the wetland. And the goal of this project and this remediation effort has to be to restore the buffer zone to an effective cleansing buffer zone as we had before, okay? So, it's usually up to the applicant to prove to us that they have a plan and they can execute a plan to restore that to an effective buffer zone, similar to what we had prior to the incident. So that's the glass at the bottom of the slope. The other part of it is how do we prevent it from happening again? And obviously, that's a design change for stabilization on the slope. Or maybe it isn't, but I think that's the modification to the order of conditions that we're talking about. If you guys have a better way to do it, propose it as a modification. This is my opinion. And, then if that's your best shot, and we agree it's effective, maybe we could move forward in that way. So anyway, that's what I got.
Okay, Sean.
So, when you say there's certain areas that have less glass than others, I think you said the less being 1 to 2 inches, is that right? Is that, yes?
That could be fair.
So, so whether it's, we've had oil spills here, we've had people fill things, we've had people fill driveways in wetlands or in buffer zones, and every time we told them to move them, they said, we don't think it'll be healthy for the land, it's gonna, it's better to leave it there and not do as much. So that falls on deaf ears in my consideration. So I'd like to see it all out of the buffer zone, I'd like to see it all out of the wetland, I'd like to see it put back the way it was. And after that's done, do you anticipate changing the design to control the glass once it's put back to where it was before? Or do you want to stick with the same design that's in the order of conditions that currently exist?
Same order.
So you don't need to amend anything?
At this point, we don't see a
Okay.
reason why.
So my position would be to get everything back to the way it was and then live up to the order of conditions.
And, Mr. Chairman, now that Lou is back in the meeting, just make sure the record does show that he's
Yeah.
recused himself and not just giving up the gavel.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lou is actually not here.
Recused, yeah.
Lou's not here.
Just make sure the record shows that.
Lou's not here.
I think the status of the further movement of glass has been pretty well discussed, and I jumped in early, and I apologize for that, but, my position is clear on that. There was some discussion I had heard about accessing the lower slopes, lower areas by way of machine and creating an access path ramp to it and perhaps leaving that in place. But I think the last thing we want is the ability to be able to get back down there with machines again in the future. So I'd be real reluctant to allow that, because I think terracing into whatever ramp they build, terracing into that glass maybe promotes just a longer-term instability unless it's really thought about how they do it. And they can come in and ask to do that as maybe part of their amendment or modification if that's what they choose to do. But I don't want to see a change of that slope design other than what we've already got on the record. I think more bothersome to me and is that this whole ownership, tenancy, change of tenancy, who's responsible, you know, that, it's such a blurred line. I think it's crystal clear, and I think maybe this situation right here demonstrates why exactly it's the landowner.
Yeah, it's irrelevant.
It's why it's the landowner. And I don't know in marketing properties what role the former tenant played, what role the airport played, what role the new buyer, new tenant played in, other than just simply running their business, what he knew, what he didn't know, what he was obligated to do, whether he knows that the order of conditions binding upon him. I do look at recent aerial photographs. There are trucks out on this peninsula way back. Is this was shut off from any activity? And it's not, it's being used. So the reason the airport is here, I think is clear to me, it's appropriate. They're the ones who own the land, they're the ones who own the lease, they're the ones who made whatever representations they did to the current tenant, and whatever transition went from the old tenant to the new. And our involvement began and ended with the enforcement order and the order of conditions. And I'm unclear of what this current tenant intends to do, other than be subject to whatever happens around him by perhaps the airport themselves. I just don't know who's gonna carry this out, and I think I think it's fair game. They're here for an enforcement action. It's fair game that we hear who it is who's gonna carry this out.
We'll ask that question in a minute. Brett?
So in a different world where we had finished the order of conditions, what is this land after the order of conditions is complete? Is it usable highland? Is it a landfill?
It's grass.
It's gonna be a no-go zone.
It's loomed and seeded, it's completely non-used, completely stabilized, with a berm to prevent anything, directing it back to a pre-treatment area and infiltration through glass that was tested all the way down to groundwater.
So it's just
Almost 100 feet.
piece of land to be accessed again, never?
So it was
Only
O&M.
fenced off and only access to do maintenance on the stormwater BMPs.
It was the intent, it was the intention of the commission, when we completed that order of conditions, that this area that now needs to be stabilized, but prior to the incident, prior to the storm, it was our intention that this become stabilized and fenced off and not used, not excavated, just a no-go zone. It might as well be the moon.
So in essence, it needs to just act like a capped landfill?
That's exactly
What it was.
That's exactly,
Exactly what we
we're
did.
just, that would be the exact description, a capped landfill, prior to the washout, yes.
Okay. I'm just, for having worked on landfills, I would expect to see like slope drains and stuff like that instead of infiltration in the middle of it, but I'm not gonna go back on that one. That's too old.
So what I'm hearing,
were you a couple of years ago?
yeah. Well, you may,
South Carolina.
Brad,
We also had experts.
Brad, you may get your chance. So I think when it comes to responsibility, I'm not confused by it. I think the airport acknowledges that it's their responsibility. They've taken responsibility. I'm not confused by that at all. I'm not confused that the tenant is responsible. The tenant's interested because he wants to conduct his business there. So the tenant is a party somewhat, but ultimately, the airport is here. They're before us. They acknowledge this is their problem. That doesn't confuse me. What is confusing me is that they can't seem to figure out where to start. And I think that between the order of conditions and the enforcement order, you guys, all due respect, you guys should be sitting there telling us exactly what you're gonna do and how you're gonna do it. You should be giving us the means and methods and the how, when, and where you're gonna do it. We shouldn't be answering any questions like that. We're saying, fix it. We're saying, stabilize it, restore it, fix it, and implement the order of conditions.
On that note, I do feel it's somewhat necessary to temper the board's expectations on what fix-it is. If you expect to get every single piece of glass out of there, that's just straight up not gonna happen.
Brad,
I would be amenable to listening to a plan of areas that might be better left in place to promote vegetation in that area. Not several feet, but if there's area where you can't get it all out, I don't want you to go in there digging out roots just to try and get the last piece of glass. So I would be willing to hear a little bit about where we could leave some in place. Obviously, it's not gonna be much to get past the rest of this board, but it is unreasonable to expect every piece of glass to come out of there.
We don't expect that, because we already know how much glass is in there.
Yeah.
When you get to the end of the peninsula, the test borings that were constructed, there were test borings done.
Yeah.
They went down 110 feet before they got parent material. That's more glass than is ever coming out, we know that.
Yeah, we
None of us-
can't go
none of
out
us
there
here.
afterwards and like, oh, there's a piece of glass.
So what we want is, we want restoration and stability.
Yep.
And that's what I think we put down in the enforcement order. How they implement the enforcement order and how it blends into the order of conditions, I don't know. If you feel that the order of conditions needs to be amended or modified, that's up to you to come to us with that. That's an easy filing. That's one page. I guess it's, yes, Counselor.
Mr. Chairman, I just say that, I'm sorry, I apologize that we don't have tonight.
Oh, you can go to the
Oh, to
podium.
make sure.
Yeah, we gotta-
You know what, if you go to the podium, we'll have you on TV.
I apologize that we don't have that plan that you were referring to tonight, but you can hear from what Brian is saying, that, just getting that little bit of feedback that we just heard about the approach, that I think that plan will be forthcoming. I guess you're probably all curious as to time frame in terms of getting going on this, and I don't know. If Brian could address what we expect on a time frame, do we come back before the commission on the 23rd, or do we come back in front of the commission on the 8th?
Well, I don't think you have to come back to start work on the enforcement order.
Okay.
The enforcement order is in place, it's immediate. I think that whatever the enforcement order says to do, you can start doing that.
That's not true. No, that's not accurate, I should say.
Okay, go ahead.
No, it's cease and desist, and to appear before the commission, present the plan of what they intend to do, and for us to approve it.
Oh, just present the plan, my
Yeah, we
apologies.
don't want them going in on their own and.
And that's why I wanted
I
to get a
guess I
little
was
direction
being, I was
first.
being wishful, Kevin.
That's why I wanted to get a little direction first before we came up with the plan. Then we come up with a plan, then you say that plan's okay, you lift the cease and desist, and then we go
All right.
forward.
So the plan is to resurvey it, create a plan, and then come back before us with that restoration plan.
Exactly.
Is there a time frame for that?
So I can work with Amy on when we would come back before the commission, but realistically, it's gonna be a good 6 weeks.
6 weeks, okay. Well, at least you're honest.
Is the site
That's
stable enough to
understandable.
wait 6 weeks?
It's been a year.
Do you want anything done in the interim?
No, I mean, we've saw it out there.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
they've done stone, and I
They
didn't.
have check dams up that seem
Yeah.
to be working.
Right.
Well, the order of conditions directs the applicant to stabilize the slope with riprap, protect the wetland, and then develop a proposed method to stabilize permanently, and that may be an amended order of conditions. So that's what their marching orders are right now.
And that's from the order of conditions?
This is from the enforcement order.
From the
Is that any
okay, all
modification,
right.
Jackie? Because it's,
No, that's
the way it is.
the enforcement order.
right, do we need to amend the enforcement order, keep it the way it is?
I don't think
keep
so.
it for the way it is, because we're waiting for the plan.
Yeah, we're waiting
So-
for the plan, step 3.
All right. Counselor, I guess I had it backwards.
No problem. I get it backwards all the time, so.
Well, I was hoping.
Thank you very much for all your time. It was good to see you all, good to meet the commissioners I didn't know.
Yes, and thank you for the feedback this
And
evening.
if it's
It's
okay,
helpful.
we can have Brian be in touch with Amy with regard to getting back onto your agenda as soon as we can.
Can we continue to the November 13th meeting,
So,
just so we have,
Yes.
we know?
there's a real good chance that I won't be at the November 13th meeting.
Okay, well then, someone else can pick up the
I just,
gavel.
you need to know that in advance
Okay,
for
yep.
quorum, purposes of quorum. It's hunting season.
All right, but
You
at
gotta
least,
remember this.
we need a
Amy,
date
there's-
definite,
So
and
there's
not
two of us right
nebulous
from the
about it.
get-go, me and him.
No, I get it. Okay,
So you're down to 5
well, at
already.
least we have, at least a check-in.
Keep it on the agenda for the 13th. and
Yes.
we can act accordingly
Yeah.
as the date nears.
Yes. So a motion on that?
Hold on.
Oh,
So what do you need a motion on?
to continue to the 13th.
Okay.
No, it's not a hearing. It's not a
I'm
hearing.
gonna get there. Before we
It's not a
continue it, are there any
hearing.
abutters here for this project that want to be heard?
It's not a hearing.
There are no abutters that answer. It's important that we,
Good, because it's not a hearing.
it's important that we keep track of our abutters.
Very inclusive committee. We welcome everybody's opinion.
Okay, I believe I have a motion and a second to continue, is that correct?
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous, you're continued.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
And one abstention.
Yeah. Lou abstains.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Clear the place up.
All right, I think we're
Okay,
at
so,
an extension request for 325 Johnson Street. DEP file 242-1816.
Wait, excuse me. What are we doing about the, Sutton Street?
we
Oh,
have,
shoot, sorry.
we have
You're right.
242-1889,
Sorry about that.
242-1889.
All right, so, yeah, so we have an ANRAD that we've been kind of keeping in a holding pattern because of this discussion we just had.
Does this need to be continued on its own?
Well, it's up to you guys. I mean, whether you,
On the ANRAD?
We're back to the same thing. They have two outstanding orders now. So this would be a third.
Okay, for the
well,
record,
no, this is
for the record,
actually,
Lou is chairing the
it's
meeting
not-
right now
okay.
with regard to the
Yeah.
ANRAD.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, go
because you
ahead.
got, you got 125.
We didn't resolve the question from 2 meetings ago, did we?
It didn't. I went through, like, the DEP regulations, and they do not allow two active orders of condition, but an ANRAD is technically a separate filing, so it is up to the town or the board.
They bounce it back to us, huh?
Yes.
Naturally.
That was my reading of it. Yeah.
For the ANRAD.
So an ANRAD is not, there's no work proposed with an ANRAD, it's just a delineation.
They have two active orders of conditions. They have the ramp, the erosion for Charles Street, and they have this one. They have two active orders of conditions of the airport already.
Well, no, I'm asking a question. I'm asking, does this, because it's an ANRAD and not a proposal to start work? Because this,
The ANRAD.
because the ANRAD is not,
Is not another order?
is
No,
not another order
it-
to conduct
to do
work.
work. It's just
There's no work
confirming the
proposed,
wetland
it's
line.
just simply to
Confirm a
to
wetland
accept the line or not accept the line, to confirm the line.
I don't know if that.
That's all I'm asking.
Well, Merce just said that we can.
You know what? You're up, I think everybody's technically correct except for me. But the reality is they're gonna take this hammer and they're gonna bring an NOI to us. At that point, we then dig our heels in.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
That's,
Let them do it. I
They
mean,
can, they
let
can
them do
have
it.
their
see,
line all
that's
they
my
want.
point. The NOI would then be, want to start work, then we can talk, then we'd have something to talk about.
Right.
Marissa, when you look at those regulations, did it really say it kicked it back to the town, or did it just say it just applies to notices?
It didn't reference the town, but there are certain towns that have it in their regulations.
But we don't.
We do not.
So it's not like a discretionary thing. It's either an order of conditions, and we don't get a second or third, or if it's not, then we have to do our phony baloney jobs and rule, right? Okay.
So where are we?
We have an abbreviated
Notice.
notice of resource area delineation in front of us, I think.
So we have our administrator who has reviewed the line
Yep.
and who says the line is accurate and correct. No work is proposed.
Yep.
I'm gonna move it. I'm gonna move that we accept this ANRAD.
So you'll close the hearing and confirm the wetland line as depicted on these plans.
Issue a notice of resource area delineation. Is that the action?
Yeah, order of resource area delineation.
That's whatever you
Close
guys
an
agree
issue.
with, that's.
So moved.
Okay, Sean.
Second, I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Okay.
All right?
Yeah, do you want to just vote on the findings while we're at it right now?
Do we want what?
Just vote on my findings that I gave you? So basically, it just says, you know, here are the wetlands flags.
Yeah, I don't think.
It's in there. It's in between.
So the other part?
It's in the North Ramp Road section. It's in between the two plan sets, sorry.
There it is.
Sorry about that.
Why'd you hide it?
I don't know.
She's testing us.
I already failed the test.
It's in between the two plan sets.
Yeah. Which plan sets in?
North Andover.
I'm sorry. My fault.
Wise guy.
There it is.
413 area code trick.
Yep.
It's in between this?
It's in between the plans.
That was, we were trying to save on Staples?
Is it one page of tax, Amy? One page?
One page.
Okay.
That's it.
Do you want the facts and findings to be admitted to the record and part of the
Decision.
approval of the ANRAD?
Yep.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
All right.
That's unanimous.
And that's where we were going, right? That's what you wanted?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Yep. Okay, so now we can do 325 Johnson. Request for extension. Order was issued in November of 2021, and it governs the construction of a two-car detached garage with a dry well, gravel driveway extension, abandonment of septic system and connection to town sewer and gas connection. Homeowners did not initiate the project for a period of time, and the planning board's watershed permit expired, which required reapproval with the planning board, so that took some time. Work did start in July of this year, and it's moving along and in compliance so far. So they're just looking for a one-year extension at this point. 21, 'cause it'll expire in November of this year.
Is there any questions? Jack?
No question, sir.
Sean?
No, sir.
Joe?
No questions.
All set.
Move that we grant the extension request.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
Picture at the top of the agenda.
Conservation calendar for 2025.
Thanks, so I'll just issue that, and you can
Okay.
record it,
Got it.
record the extension,
Very good.
but that'll probably be later next week.
All those in favor say
Okay.
aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
No, you'll get a physical
Now we're into
copy
decisions.
with the original signatures.
Huh?
Thanks for coming.
I know for a fact they will.
There you go, I know.
242, 1899.
That's a Wednesday, I'll be in Bermuda.
You're gonna be at the Lebec Rouge on Hampton Beach?
No, I'll be in,
Princess Hotel in Hamilton.
now I'll be on the cruise ship. At the meeting time, I'll probably be in the casino.
Just out of curiosity, what were you people here for?
The extension
325.
request.
Oh, the extension
The
request, okay.
extension, I should have put it,
It went so fast, I didn't,
It should have been first on the agenda.
I know,
you know, sorry
I'm
about that.
sorry.
Well, listen, there's no extra charge for the entertainment.
Thanks.
Where are we?
Johnson Street, 865, 877.
865, 877, Johnson.
Amy, you did good.
You did?
Yeah, I like the bond.
Lots of yellow.
Are these the two that were part of an original four-house
Yes.
thing? Okay.
Yeah.
And I got
you.
that on the front page.
Got it. I see it. Land disturbance permit.
Single order conditions, currently a single applicant with two separate construction projects. So there is a possibility they spin off one of the lots and sell it speculatively and retain one. Or they could sell them both off to two separate developers. So we gotta find a way that we consolidate the language, that it's binding to individual lots and both lots collectively. It may be because we're issuing it to a current owner and citing both book and page numbers if they do currently exist,
Okay.
and then really beefing up that language on,
Like condition number 24, do you think?
that's what I'm trying to look for. Yep, beefing up condition 24 that states that, and, you know, when we talk about conveyances, we require an affidavit to be
Yes.
signed.
Yeah.
That we solidify that language to kind of tie that, maybe close that loop. I think those three things could do it.
You don't think 24 is adequate, Rachel?
So what could happen is finger pointing. I have single order conditions that proposes to do all these things. I went out and did my own thing, which caused a problem over there. So there needs to be a cooperative performance of two separate construction jobs potentially. Just the way the market is.
Yeah.
I think it's the same building anyway.
I understand what you're saying, I don't know how we prevent it.
I think we can prevent it.
Well, you've got dividability and severability type of stuff. I mean, what do you think about something like that?
I think in the end, it's the applicant that's the responsible party here. And if the applicant is involving more than one address, then it's all of those addresses that have to live up to it. I think we see this on planned residential
Subdivisions.
developments and subdivisions and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it tied to the deed? So like anybody that does a title search on it, it's tied to the
it'll
deed.
pop up.
Right. Because there will be orders of conditions for individual lots, and then orders of conditions that will apply to all the lots, correct?
I think the stormwater was designed for both houses.
I think, for discussion, 24, I think we should go so far as to say that it applies to the entire lot or each individual lot, should they be sold off separately. I think that's something that needs to be clarified in there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a term of art is jointly and severally, it's often used in the law. That means you're responsible individually and jointly. It
So
covers
if someone
both.
we can work that in there, as opposed to this permit applying to the land and its successors, even if it's divided successors. I think we need to say something to that effect, to make that clear. And we do have the conveyance piece of it, right, the affidavit, so if that land is sold off, they should notify us that they're aware of the order conditions and that they are in fact bound by it. Not just the ultimate homeowner, but the ultimate builder if it is a different person. Is that something we usually put as post-construction, the affidavit on
I know,
sales?
hold on. I'm looking for it. It's gotta be in there somewhere.
So, I mean, looking again at 23 and 24, 23, you use the term applicant to refer to the owner and any successor of interest. And then in 24, you say this decision applied and binding upon the applicant, owner, its employees. Do you want that all to be this, are you separating out applicant from those people in number 24? Because 24 includes employees.
Well, Well, I think,
What employees?
I think that condition that the, so that was an inherited condition, that's been in, that's a boilerplate.
23?
That you, like, hold all parties responsible
Yep.
for complying with the order.
Right, but once you say all these people, from now on, instead of saying all these people, we're gonna use the word applicant. In 24, we use all the people again, instead of saying the applicant,
Okay.
right? I mean, that is now a term of art that should be utilized throughout the document,
Okay,
yeah.
so which term you want me to use?
Well, I think under applicant, if, the only difference I see between 23 and 24 is employees.
Okay,
Is that a significant category of person for the
Yeah.
purpose of an order of conditions? I don't think so.
conditions of this shall apply to applicant.
How can this apply to somebody's employees?
Well, it goes back
Yeah,
when
it's
when
kind
an
of,
applicant threw his employee under the bus.
Yeah,
We're about
probably,
to do
exactly.
that.
We're gonna
Right.
put employee in there for now. We'll never let that happen again. Here we are now,
So-
what's the hell happening there? So,
take out employees.
yeah, I would take out employees and then say these conditions and decisions apply to, I mean, it's just repeating what it says in 23.
Term applicant is using.
If you want to just take out everything in 24 and just have 24 read, these obligations shall be expressed in covenants and all deeds to succeeding owners of portions of the property, I think we have the same thing, but it's just clearer,
that would do it.
consistent.
Yeah, that would clear it up, thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna work that out. So 56 talks about the affidavit.
The applicant. And when you use the term applicant, you gotta use a capital A, just like you do when you quoted it there.
Okay,
Yeah, everywhere.
all right.
Oftentimes in documents, they'll either put it all in capitals or highlight it just to
Okay,
make it jump out to the reader. I'm not suggesting you do that, but.
okay.
And I see in 40, the applicant, lowercase a. Might want to just
Okay.
do a find and replace.
Okay, I'll just find it, please.
I think the way 56 is crafted short of the capitalization of the words, I think it does the trick.
But I would get rid of legal owner, because applicant is legal owner, as referenced in the.
So are you saying that once I say the applicant means owner or successor in interest, do I say owner and successor in interest from then on?
Well,
Or do you want-
you say here, the term applicant is used in this order shall refer to, so.
Yeah.
The owner, any successor of interest or successor in control of the property is referenced in the notice of intent.
Once you've defined it up there, it's good everywhere.
Right,
As long
so-
as you say applicant.
Exactly, so you just use that same applicant
I
with
got
the
you.
A. So
Okay.
otherwise, the way to do it would be to, I mean, I like the way you do it here, it's the best way to do
Okay.
it. The other way to do it would say, the owner, any successor of interest, and then open parentheses, here and after applicant. The way you did it here is better.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. All right. How's the bond, condition number 39?
Two house
Like,
lots.
yeah.
Any special conditions because the demoing the house?
So, what's that?
Because the demoing the existing house, is there any special conditions for demolition?
I didn't add any.
Don't make a mess.
Now, the question comes to mind that if two separate contractors buy the parcels and there's a bond for 15,000, should we put language in there that it's actually $7,500 per lot, so that,
Going back to what John
so that
said,
say if two different,
going back to what John said, that this order condition is issued to the applicant.
Yeah.
So the applicant should
That's a
review.
business transaction that they've set up.
Yeah,
in the
that's-
document.
I wouldn't worry about that. I'd
Okay,
just keep
all
the
right.
one number for the entire project.
All right,
okay. Okay. Okay.
Condition 46, I'm surprised Louis hasn't jumped on it yet. Are we unclear of what the dewatering needs are on this one? 'Cause we usually drive that home up front.
I know,
he was reluctant to do that. He said he don't need it, but,
So in this instance, we're gonna let,
no, he's supposed to,
well, or we can say we need dewatering BMPs proposed and approved and installed at the time of pre-construction meeting.
that's not how I read that. I read this that I've had my pre-construction meeting, I've started
Yes,
work.
right.
I've determined I've now discovered I
Yes.
need dewatering, so prior to doing anything, I'm gonna call you up and say, let's do another on-site meeting. That's how I read this.
Yes, right,
So
Which
if you
is
want
what-
it
which is-
pre-construction, say it.
Okay.
That we want this pre-construction, not prior to implementation.
yep. Okay,
well, we thought, we think that there should be a dewatering? Was it just, the council,
know.
I know
I
they
mean-
don't wanna do it.
Yeah.
I think all projects that have potential water
excavation,
issues
yep, okay.
should have the dewatering pit.
This is
already.
Hillside on Johnson, right? Hillside.
Yeah, yeah,
on the
yeah,
back
yeah.
of Clay, yeah. They're gonna need dewatering, the water bleeds right out of that hill.
Yeah.
Isn't there a brook, Transverse Brook
On
right
top of
above this
Mill-
lot?
On top of Mill
Well,
Street.
well, yeah, there's a wetland up above.
Yeah, so we know they're gonna, it's strong likely they're
Yeah,
gonna have to
okay,
dewater.
all right, so BMPs need to be
Dewatering
proposed,
tip will be
and
installed before
installed.
pre-construction.
yep,
You didn't miss it. I think when we closed this, you weren't here at that meeting.
Oh,
That's what happened. You'd
Yeah.
have been all over it.
okay.
yeah, I just don't understand that.
Okay,
That was,
So we all good?
good.
yep.
Motion?
Motion to approve the order of conditions as amended?
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Last one is 242-1903.
This is the sewer?
This is,
It
yes,
says
186 Bradford Sewer Force Main Connection.
previous. I'm looking, I thought it was saying, small project. I didn't know that. That was previous. Yeah, you weren't here for this one, Joe. I was hoping you were gonna be here. Although Ryan stepped up to the plate and,
I was at the first one with the
Yeah.
applicant himself.
well, when it got approved, Ryan stepped up to the plate and pretty much covered all your concerns.
Appreciate that. I think what we came down to, we had the applicant to represent himself at the first hearing and gave answers that he
Yeah.
just didn't know,
Well, that's-
real answers.
If you had somebody special.
What now?
Read condition 45 back to us.
45?
Tell us what your intent
I
is.
think I'm having a stroke.
A row of staked 12, okay.
What do you really mean there?
Baked by steak.
At a minimum.
Silk thin.
A minimum, a row of 12-inch staked mulch sock. Shall be installed. Baked, not baked, but backed.
What's entrenched? Entrenched?
And turned. Spell check didn't get those. Thanks. Silphene. Wow.
This gets worse.
What was I
This over and over. Like what?
It's not even in gibberish.
She was sitting too close to the pollinator garden.
It's like is this like Boston accent? Back and stack and
Oh my gosh. That's pretty funny.
Don't say it out loud. No, I didn't. I tried not to. Good thing I'm sitting here.
Good catch.
Thanks.
Did we move it yet?
motion.
Go ahead.
Motion to approve the order of conditions as amended.
Motion is
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Motion to adjourn.
second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.